Hello, and welcome back to the Share Parenting podcast and YouTube channel. If you are audio listening and you want to see my face, feel free to head over to YouTube. Otherwise, we will just get into today's topic. So it is December 1st, and of course, the topic of Santa has come around once again. It does every year. Many years ago, I wrote an article that is on my blog on the website www.shareparenting.com/blog. So, I mean, if you go back maybe 10 years ago, there was sort of this grassroots movement, if you will, of I won't lie to my child. I'm not going to manipulate them with Santa. And it was an interesting time because there was some really good intent behind this little movement. And then there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of angry response. And part of the reason why is because those that had started saying things like this were saying it in a very judgmental, shaming way. And I think about that, and I think about why that might have been. And I think part of it comes from children who feel unheard, unseen. They're used to being dismissed. They're used to being told that they're stupid, crazy, ridiculous, babyish, whatever. They have this pendulum swing all the way to the other side sometimes where they preemptively feel like they need to defend themselves. And part of that defense can be to not only just make their own decision, but then also shame somebody who is making a different decision in order to feel justified in making the decision they're making. And so to slide away from that a little bit would be, I'm choosing not to promote Santa as fact, but I get that every family does it their own way. I feel uncomfortable. I feel kind of like it's lying. So I'm not going to be doing Santa in my home. Right? That's an I statement. I feel this way, not you're lying to your kid. The great thing that came out of that was the discussion. We were able to talk about this idea, and some parents shared their experiences of being children and feeling lied to and overwhelmed by this thought that their parents had freaking tricked them for years. How dare they? And they felt like it really broke trust. And I posit that if that was the case for you, if we looked at that parent-child relationship as a whole, there was probably more going on than Santa bringing you presents. And I don't say that to minimize the hurt that you felt. I say that because parents make mistakes, like lots of them, and kids are incredibly understanding and forgiving, possibly too much so, because we can accidentally take advantage of that. So if this is like a haunting thing years and years and years later, is it that finding out Santa wasn't real was traumatizing? Or is it that that experience represents the type of relationship you felt you had with your parents, that you couldn't trust them, that they did lie to you, that they dismissed you as young and stupid and, unknowing? And I mean, it's certainly possible, because I can't dictate every single person's experience in the world. But what I find is that all of the people actually that I've spoken to about this one topic have been able to say, yeah, there was definitely more to that relationship that wasn't great than just the Santa thing. So why do people feel, there's this wide spectrum, right? So there's some people that are like, why is there a problem with Santa? What is wrong with people? The problem with Santa is how it's often used. You better be good or Santa won't bring you any presents. Some kids are actually scared of Santa. Like there's a creepy man that's going to wait until everybody's sleeping and then break into your house and move stuff around. That's weird, man. That is weird. Why do we do that? Why is that part of the story? I find it bizarre. I remember learning about a culture, I think it was Dutch, maybe, when I was in like first grade. And I remember this because they pulled all of us kids into this like little amphitheater they had next to the library. and we had to take our shoes off before we went in. And so they read us a story, whatever, told us the story about this culture where the kids put their shoes outside the night before their winter celebration. I don't remember if it was even Christmas or solstice or what. And in the morning, there would be something in their shoe. If they were good, it would be little treats. If they were bad, it would be a stick. So I just remember this. I remember it very vividly. And I think that this idea of coming up with a fantasy creature to kind of keep kids in line has been used for a really long time. Like a really long time. There's a great article talking about how the Inuits handle anger, and it includes using a monster to scare children. Like, there's also some other really great pieces of it that I think are lovely in the self-regulation the adults exhibit, but I find it interesting that's part of culture all over the world. So how do you like, if you are just like, yeah, this is dumb, I'm doing Santa the exact same way my parents did, it'll be fine. Okay, you do you. Like I said, this is probably not a make or break issue in the real grand scheme of things. I do recommend that you not use the flat out manipulation part. I certainly despise the idea of like throwing presents into the fireplace to burn up their presents, like wrapping specifically empty presents to throw them in the fireplace to threaten your children. That's emotionally abusive. Like, that's too much. The idea of the gift giving around the holidays is about celebration, connection, family. This isn't about behavior modification. And if you've been following me for a hot minute, you'll understand that children are always doing the best that they can. So if they're having a hard time, let's figure out why. Why is it that we feel we need the imaginary guy that's going to come down the chimney, or the presents, or whatever, to manipulate them instead of observing them and figuring out what is making this hard? There's so many things it could be. Maybe I'll do that on another episode. Reasons that you might not have thought of that make the holidays hard for kids. And hard looks like challenging behavior. So don't do that part, in my opinion. I guess that's why you're here, for my advice, right? But you can certainly do the Santa part, the fun part, the magic part. And the way that I chose to go about it was to let my child decide. I said to him, what do you think? And he says, Santa's real. And I said, okay. Right. He saw Santa on TV. He saw Santa at his little preschool library books. It's a very, very prominent cultural experience. You're probably not going to avoid Santa entirely. And I think that opponents of the idea of not doing Santa are like, you are such a fuddy-duddy, you're going to take the magic out of Christmas. That's also not true. Any child who wakes up to presents in their living room is going to feel like that's magical. Any child who gets to do special fun things with their family and traditions and get to see extended family and make cookies and decorate a tree, and all of those things are magical. So you don't have to do Santa, certainly. However, if you want to, you can, just tell the story the way that you do any other story in your culture. The way that we did it is, we read the books, we probably watched a movie. It's been 7 years now, so I don't quite remember. But I remember he didn't care much at all until he was 3. Then he mentioned it, and I said, what do you think? You get to decide what you believe. Everybody believes different things. And he said, Santa's real. And I said, okay, we'll do Santa. Maybe I said, we'll play Santa. And to me, it's very much like all of the other make-believe things that we play with our kids. They're not really a ninja. We're not really a bank robber that they're trying to arrest us, the police officer. Like, none of that is real, but we don't have to stop and be like, hey, you need to understand that this is fake. This is not real. Like, we just let them play. And that's a big part of childhood. They have a very loose grasp on the difference between fantasy and reality. As well they should. That's part of development. And so I let him decide. As the years have gone on, he'll come up and be like, I think Santa's not real. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I don't think there's really a guy that comes in our house. I'm like, okay, you get to decide what you want to believe. And a year ago, 2 years ago, I think, he had said, well, I don't believe in it. I'm like, that's fine. You get to decide what you believe in, but so does your brother and so does your sister. So if they decide they want to believe something else, then you just let them be. You get to decide for you, they get to decide for them. He's like, okay. And he's a type of person that feels better knowing. And still, there are presents. I put presents under the tree without any from. Everything just says to whomever it's to. Who's it from? Insert your imagination here. As he gets older and older, he's like, yeah, this is all from mom and dad. Awesome. And the little kids, quite frankly, probably think it's all from Santa. That's fine too. Wherever they're at in their development, there's room for them to evolve, change their minds, decide what they believe. There's a lot of flexibility in it in our home. I don't go out of my way to make them believe in Santa. I've seen some things that are like, oh, take a boot outside and put footprints in the snow. Like we've never done anything like that. I don't feel the need to make them believe in it, but if they choose to, that's fine too. And we read a lot of different stories about the holidays. And so that's part of it. So I was watching a video. Kristen Somner, she's a PhD in child development or child psychology or something like that. She's on Instagram. And I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Dr. Christy N. Sommer. That's what it is. She did a video recently about the Santa thing. And she really likes the idea of starting that conversation with cultures. So talking about different cultures and different belief systems and letting them kind of be exposed to the ideas that everybody does it a little different, and that helping them to have sort of an open-minded idea around the holidays that I believe will evolve into a comfortable settling into the truth, right? If you're told and pushed to believe that there is a man who flies on a sled and he comes down your chimney and he brings presents, this one narrative, then it's kind of jarring to go away from that. But if you're led to believe that there's lots of different ideas, and sometimes people believe that there's a Santa and sometimes there's a Saint Nick and sometimes there's, other characters. And, in the United States, most people do Santa. Some people do nothing at all, and that's okay. Everybody celebrates differently. And letting them sit with the possibility that there's other ideas and other explanations, and just really following their lead. The thing that I think is really important is, other than not manipulating your kids on intentionally with this, is to not tell them Santa's fake or Santa's not real 30 days, not even 30, 24 days before Christmas. I've actually seen this come up in the past 2 days over and over again, where a parent will post in a parenting group, not in my group, interestingly, but in several other groups that I'm in. I told my kid that Santa's not real because I felt like that he needed to know that, and now he's mad at me. Like, yeah, he's done Christmas the same way for 10 years. And you just took away Christmas 24 days before Christmas. He's been making a Christmas list. He's been watching Christmas movies. He's been so excited about what he's believed for his entire life. And you pick right now to take that away. Why? What was the goal there? Well, he's just too old. Says who? Like, really sit with that for a minute. Why do you think that he's too old to have fun, to play, to imagine? And in all of the posts that I've seen, it was a boy that they decided, you're too old, I'm taking this away from you. And they frame it as helping the child. Why? Why are we so uncomfortable letting boys be little boys. 9, 10, 11 years old. These are still children. They don't need to grow up. They don't need to move on. Now, the cool thing about starting with openness and you get to decide what you believe and all of that is that if they're at school and other kids are like, "Oh, Santa's not real," then it's very simple for them to be like, "Okay, you don't believe in Santa. Everyone decides what they believe. I do." Right? It's not a big deal. Could somebody make fun of them? Yeah. Somebody could also make fun of their shoes or their hair or their glasses or how tall they are or what they ate for lunch. Like if somebody wants to make fun of you, they'll just make fun of whatever they see. It's not something you're going to avoid. So I don't know because I don't know these parents or their history. I imagine that they fall into the camp of like actively trying to make their kids believe for a period of time. Which is what the original movement called the lying, and the part that I didn't really subscribe to for myself. Because I never wanted that conversation. I never wanted to have this big, like, coming clean reveal. I wanted my kids to develop themselves and their belief systems over time and feel confident changing them however they felt necessary. And I feel for these little kids, right? The one was 9, and that's younger than my oldest. And I'm just like, I can't imagine in December, like right before the holiday, shattering their perception. Now, will he get through it and be fine in the end? Of course. But that hurt, right? So if you're in this place where you've been pushing this and you've done everything you can to make them believe for 9 years, 10 years, 11 years, and you're like, oh man, maybe they're too old now. Don't go and like stab the balloon and have it pop, right? Introduce them to cultural ideas. Talk about all the different ways that the winter holidays are celebrated throughout the world. Let them know that everybody thinks different things. Let them know that they get to decide what they believe. You can do that part even 10 years later, even if you didn't start that way. And that gently opens them up to the possibility of considering maybe this is a tradition. Maybe this is fun. Maybe this is magical. The big thing about all 3 of the posts that I saw recently is that none of those kids asked. None of those kids went to their parents and said, hey, I'm starting to have questions. I don't think Santa's real. I think you're Santa. If your kid does that, by all means, be honest. Well, if you mean that I buy the presents, I do. And I love playing Santa with you guys. I think it's super fun to have a big surprise in the morning. So Santa sort of represents that magical experience of coming downstairs and seeing all these gifts that are for you, how much we love you and how much we want to celebrate with you. Santa is the spirit of giving, people say. And also you can have a spirit of giving without Santa at all. That's okay too. That doesn't have to go anywhere. So if your kid is, directly asking you, then sure, be honest. But if they're not asking and you have just decided they're too old, question yourself. Why? Why are they too old to play make-believe? Why do you think they're too old to have fun? This same kind of conversation comes up around Halloween. You're 15. You're too old to go trick-or-treating. Why? What is this aversion to letting kids be kids? It is harmless. It is beautiful. It is fun. So many adults are disconnected from the ability to have fun. Could we maybe not do that to our 9-year-olds, our 10-year-olds, our 11-year-olds? A 9-year-old has 17 years of brain development left. They're not even halfway through. They're not even no, they are a third of the way through. Just kidding. They're just a third of the way through. They're just over a third of the way through. Let them be a kid. An 11-year-old has 14 years left. Her 12-year-old. I don't know. I made a slide about this. That's where the numbers are coming from. I don't math in my head. But girls tend to develop their prefrontal cortex and the rest of their brain until they're about 25, boys until 26, roughly. So those numbers keep getting tweaked. It was like the 22 region. Recently, semi-recently, I saw something that said 27. So somewhere around there, the 20s. Okay. When you're still in single digits, when you're not even a teenager, nobody needs to try to make you grow up faster. And if you're worried about your kid getting bullied at school, have the conversation about different beliefs. Don't take away their belief. Don't force them out of it. Just let them know that people think differently. They might run into that in their life. Here's how you handle it. And please have faith in them. Have belief that they are going to be able to handle various people that think different things. Because it's normal. That happens already in their life. They're used to that. If you have been focusing all of the winter holidays around Santa and you're feeling like losing that is losing something really important, it might give you an opportunity to sit with your child, have a family meeting about what is it about the winter holidays that feels special to you? Why is this a celebration? Obviously, for Christians, they're celebrating the birth of Jesus. But there's a lot of people who are not Christian that are celebrating Christmas. And there's a lot of people that are celebrating solstice. And what is it that we're celebrating? You know, my kids love reading about Hanukkah because they think that's such a cool story, and I've never asked them, do you think this is a literally true story? Or do you think that this is an allegory? Like, I don't have to. They probably, I would guess at the ages they're at, are just very accepting of all stories as true. And that's fine. I think that in Jewish families, that story is really, really true. And I think that some people who are not Jewish go, it's a story. I don't think one is better or worse than the other, though. I think that having the power of sharing tradition through story is incredibly bonding and powerful. We love reading about all of the different holidays and all of the different ways that people celebrate, and then finding the things that we enjoy. We love putting up a tree. We love ornaments. We love baking cookies. We love having a feast. Santa doesn't play a huge role in our lives, but we certainly do presents. We also really love to find people to buy presents for outside of our family. They did angel tree at our Walmarts for a long time. They don't seem to have one this year. So we're going to have to get a little more creative. Who are we going to get gifts for that, we don't necessarily know personally, but just because we enjoy giving, we enjoy choosing something that we think will make somebody else feel good. And that's part of our tradition. Playing in the snow is part of our tradition now that we moved to a new state. Being able to make a snow mountain, as my child would say, is part of our winter tradition. We have some lawn decorations that go up. That's part of our tradition. Why? Because we are focused on bringing joy and light into this season. Family connection, happiness, peace, calm, like all of these things that we value are highlighted during this time. So whether or not any one specific piece is necessary, that's really a personal decision. I think that if you have the core values that you're trying to focus on, the specifics won't matter as much. So hopefully that gives you some things to consider, some options. If you feel, if you disagree with me and you're like, no, I need to be the one to tell my kid Santa's not real, at least wait until after Christmas. Okay? Let them have their presents. Let them have their hot cocoa. Let them have, all of the fun of this last month of their childhood. And then afterwards, let them know, hey, I just wanted to, it's important that I tell you something because I want to be the one to tell you and I don't want other people to tell you and it hurt you in any way. What are you talking about? I just want you to know that, mom and dad are the ones that are playing Santa. We're the ones that buy the presents and put them under the tree. And so that you and your siblings can have all this fun on Christmas Day. And I think that you might already know that, but I wanted to confirm it with you now that you're 12, whatever. I don't think you have to. I think you can wait until they ask. But I don't get to decide what you do. So I would advise, if you are determined to tell them yourself and put a hard line on it, at least let them celebrate first. It's going to be a lot easier to deal with that disappointment when you have new toys to play with. And some families have to have this conversation. This is something too that I hadn't really thought about. The economy has been really hard for people recently. So if you went from having, a big present from Santa and then a bunch of little presents from mom and dad to this year, there's like nothing under your tree or one thing or like necessities, that it might feel confusing. You might have a kid that's like, wait, does Santa not love me anymore? And that might be a window to have this conversation. Be like, hey guys, Santa's been so fun to play with you. And the reality is that this year, our gifts are going to be a lot more of activities than of toys and stuff. It's just what it looks like this year. Now, I'm going to do a whole other list of free things that you can give your kids because, yeah, it's been rough. But I can have compassion for being forced into that situation. Like that sucks. I'm so sorry if you're struggling. I know that the struggle itself is hard, but having to admit that to your kids is an extra level of hard. And hopefully the list of free ideas makes it a little easier. Because it doesn't, presents don't have to cost money. Not really. Maybe a little bit. Maybe grocery cost type money, but you don't have to put a mountain of toys underneath your Christmas tree. It's not required. It's not what makes Christmas Christmas. So that went off on a little bit of a tangent. But it's important. It's important to focus on the core values that you are looking to experience with your children. And when those are solidly in place, the specifics are not nearly as essential. So, I hope that helps. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. If you need support or you need help, feel free to join our group coaching. We meet on Thursdays and Saturdays, and we are going to be adding a new edition really soon that I'm working on. So I'm super excited about that. For like children to have a meeting to learn about emotional regulation and emotional intelligence and how to communicate your needs and what needs even are, all of that. So that's going to be added to our group coaching really soon. So I'm super excited about that. And I look forward to being here to help if you need anything. You can always set up a free call, bit.ly/callsammy. And I am always happy to see what I can do to be of service to you. So I will talk to you later, guys.